April 2005. Life goes on, picture framing, living life in North Ridgeville, and reading books. Let's talk about the books. The first book I read in April of 2005, Silent Bob Speaks by Kevin Smith. This is a collection of essays that he wrote for Arena magazine, and they range from interviews with Ben Affleck and Tom Cruise to Kevin Smith talking about sex with his wife and his oily poops. It's a wide range of subjects. Not the funniest thing, in my opinion, that he's ever written. Possibly my least favorite thing that I've read from Kevin Smith, but still interesting enough. And he talks a lot about Hollywood and filmmaking and stuff. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, from an indie filmmaker, Silent Bob Speaks by Kevin Smith. Next up, Minion by L.A. Banks. This is a vampire hunter legend, I think, is what it says. Our main character is Damali Richards. She is a spoken word artist and a vampire hunter. And so she and another group of people, or a group of people that work with her, hunt vampires and other monsters. And there's a series of vampire killings going on. And some of them are different than your normal vampire killing, where you just have, a bite mark on the neck. These people have been ripped apart. And so Damali and her group have to figure out what's going on. I don't know that it's a series. Didn't bother to check. But I like to try these things out. It does not stand out in my mind. That's Minion by L.A. Banks. Excuse me. Next up, we have The Ferryman, or The Ferryman, by Christopher Golden. And this is about Janine Hartshorn. And she leaves her boyfriend to be with this guy that with whom she has become pregnant. But as soon as she tells him she's pregnant, he leaves. And then she almost dies having a miscarriage. And she gets back together with her previous boyfriend. Try to fix their relationship, but something is keeping them apart. Something is after them. Does it have to do with her near-death experience? It's a book called The Ferryman. What could it possibly be? Christopher Golden, I've talked about how great a lot of his books are, but he can be hit and miss. For every few fantastic books, in my opinion, he has a clunker, and this was one of those kind of clunkers, in my opinion. But The Ferryman by Christopher Golden. Then we have a lot of nonfiction this month. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nonfiction books this month. And the second one of those is The Science of Superman by Mark Wolverton. And this is one of those books that takes a character or something, a theme, obviously in this case it's Superman, and looks at his powers through a scientific lens. So it talks about a scientific concept and then we'll apply it to Superman. How would this make his power, this whatever specific power it is, work, or what would keep it from actually working? I like this kind of stuff. I like reading about science. You throw some pop culture in there to make it palatable. I believe there's a famous song, "Pop Culture Helps the Medicine Go Down." I have a number of these types of books. I don't have this one, but really enjoyable. If you're interested in science, if you're interested in comic books, and Superman in particular, The Science of Superman by Mark Wolverton. Then we have Dark Planet by Charles W. Sasser. I remember absolutely nothing about this, and reading the description of it on Amazon, did not trigger any memories whatsoever. But our main character is Kadar San, who's half human, half alien. So humans don't like him. His alien people don't like him. But he's sent to the dark planet, where there's all sorts of just killer flora and fauna. And there was a race there that had enslaved the aliens that he's half alien from, whatever that sentence should be. And there's a box or something that could destroy the universe. Kadar and his group are trying to get it, but there's bad guys. A lot of stuff going on. Different aliens. The description didn't really help. These aliens that Kadar is half of. If they kill, it causes this hormone surge that will kill them or something. I don't know. I look it up on Amazon if you're interested. I have no memory of this whatsoever, and reading the description, a lot of times when I read the description of something I don't particularly remember, I go, oh yeah, I seem to remember this. I wouldn't mind reading it again. This, I have no interest in reading it again. But that's just me. Dark Planet, Charles W. Sasser. Another nonfiction, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops, by George Carlin. And this is just a bunch of comedic essays by George Carlin. I think a very smart comedian. I don't know too many people that would disagree. Very funny guy. This might have been his last book before he died. But very, very funny stuff, especially if you are a George Carlin fan, as I am. When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? George Carlin. Then we have Down Here by Andrew Vax. This is a Burke novel, and this focuses on a character named Wolf. I believe that's her last name. I don't remember her first name. She's a sex crimes prosecutor, and she is being blamed for the murder of a rapist that she had prosecuted. And so Burke gets his underground crew together. He has a relationship with her, a working relationship with her. And he gets his underground crew together to help her. Some of the legal profession stand by her and trying to help, but there are others, there's bad cops and bad lawyers and stuff that are going after her, and secrets that maybe someone's trying to cover up. It's really, really good stuff. Love the Burke novels. And I think Wolf is based on Andrew Vax's wife. She was a sex crimes prosecutor. She has a book called Sex Crimes that I read. Talked about it a long, long time ago when it was on in one of these videos. And it was interesting because she talked about a lot of cases that she worked on, and I recognized some of those as being inspiration for episodes of Law and Order SVU. It's a heartbreaking book, but I think Wolf is based on her. I could be completely wrong, but it makes sense. It was the author's wife. But as I said, the Burke books are always fantastic. Andrew Vax, great writer, very hardcore writer. Books that make me angry because they usually deal with sex crimes or crimes against children, which are two things that make me very, very angry. But Down Here, Andrew Vax. It's good stuff. Next up, another nonfiction, Gasping for Airtime by Jay Moore. And this is a memoir about Jay Moore's 2 years with Saturday Night Live. So it's all about the behind the scenes and the guests and the writing sessions, and in the description it says the fake writing sessions. And I seem to recall reading in here and maybe somewhere else where they would have these fake writing sessions with the host, and then after that was all done, they would go and have their real writing sessions, and so about that kind of stuff, about the whole week, putting the show together, going live, but also fighting to get airtime on the show, because obviously there's only so much time in each episode. You've got a lot of people in the cast, a lot of featured players or whatever they call them, and all of them want to make it on the air if they can. So again, as a fan of Saturday Night Live, although I haven't watched it in ages, former fan of Saturday Night Live, Gasping for Airtime by Jay Moore. I like this kind of behind the scenes look. Then we have A Just Determination by John G. Henry, who is also Jack Campbell, I believe, author of The Lost Fleet. But this is a Jag in Space novel, part of a series. The main character is Paul Sinclair, Ensign Paul Sinclair, and he's on a spaceship, and this ship is meant to keep bad guys out of American airspace. The captain accidentally shoots down a scientific vessel, civilian vessel, and so it goes on trial. Paul Sinclair thinks there's more to it than just a simple mistake or whatever by this captain. So it's Jag, the TV show, but in space. I don't know that I ever read any more, but again, I always like mashups, like giving mashups a try. Seemed like something that could be interesting. A Just Determination by John G. Henry. Then we have another nonfiction, the last nonfiction for the month, one that I still have, and that is Star Wars and Philosophy, edited by Kevin S. Decker and Jason T. Eberl. One of two, I think there's two Star Wars and Philosophy books. There's two different publishers of these pop culture and philosophy, two major ones. There might be other ones that throw some out there every once in a while, but there's two major publishers of pop culture and philosophy. And these guys did Star Wars and Philosophy. This is the Open Court. And then the other publisher, instead of just putting out theirs called Star Wars and Philosophy, it's the Ultimate Star Wars and Philosophy. But anyway, this is the one that I read in April of 2005. And it, as with all the books in this series, it looks at Star Wars through a philosophical lens and uses Star Wars to discuss certain philosophical ideas. Those are the two main things that these essays do. It's a book of essays. Some of my favorites, right off the bat: You Cannot Escape Your Destiny, or Can You? Freedom and Predestination in the Skywalker Family. A Wretched Hive of Scum and Villainy, Star Wars and the Problem of Evil. And let's see, where's the one? If Droids Could Think, Droids as Slaves and Persons. And my personal favorite, where is it? A Certain Point of View, Lying Jedi, Honest Sith, and the Viewers Who Love Them. Reading that essay was the first time I was told, I didn't realize it, but it sort of cemented the idea that if you go through, it seems like, at least at the time this was written, that the Sith tell the truth much more often than the Jedi, and the Jedi seem to lie quite a bit, and then pass it off as well from a certain point of view. But I've mentioned it many times, love the pop culture and philosophy books, a huge Star Wars fan, so this is one of my favorites in the entire series. Star Wars and Philosophy, edited by Kevin S. Decker and Jason T. Eberl. The penultimate book for April of 2005 is Dead Run by P.J. Tracy. Thank you to Thomas for sending me a bunch of P.J. Tracy books. So I believe I have the entire series now. The entire Monkey Wrench series, I should say. And in this one, it says, I can't remember the names of people, so computer game company founders Grace McBride and Annie Belinsky, along with Wisconsin deputy Sharon Mueller, are en route to Green Bay following reports of a serial killer. And their car breaks down, and they find this little town, and it doesn't seem that there's anybody there, but then they witness a double murder, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. There's no phones or anything. It's could be, is this like a fake town that's a hunting ground, or is there something else going on? I really enjoy these books. They're can be over the top at times, but they're still entertaining. The characters are great, and they're just wild thrillers that are a lot of fun. It's Dead Run by P.J. Tracy. And then the final book that I read in April of 2005 is Crisis on Infinite Earths by Marv Wolfman, and this is the novelization of the huge DC Comics event that is it the first big earth-shattering event in comics. It was in the 80s. I'm trying to remember which came first, if this or Secret Wars came first, although Secret Wars wasn't quite as earth-shattering. It had some changes, introduced the symbiote that would become Venom. But Crisis on Infinite Earths is the story of the Anti-Monitor and the multiverse being destroyed one universe at a time. And this was DC trying to clean up their continuity. Way back in the day, continuity wasn't very important, especially at DC. Marvel, in my opinion, Marvel has never had an event that has completely changed or rewritten their continuity. There have been some things like the one more day, whatever it is, the Spider-Man thing, that changed Spider-Man's continuity, but through a very specific means. It's very unpopular. And there have been big events that have made big changes, such as House of M and then No More Mutants, but they've never, as a company, basically wiped out their past continuity and changed it. They've made changes. They've made stupid changes, and they've tried to fix it. Maybe the closest they've come is the whole Heroes Reborn thing. But even like Secret Wars and all that stuff hasn't had the impact of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So at DC, they didn't care about continuity too much, and so you had all these different versions of different characters, and so then it became, to try to explain it, they would say, oh, well, that version of Superman was on Earth Q, and this version of Batman was on Earth 12, and this version of this character was here. So very confusing. And so this was supposed to fix all of that, tighten it all up. And so essentially, all of the multiverse was being destroyed. And by the end of the book, the series, it was a 12-issue series, those universes that were left merged together into one, and that became the DC universe. And they sort of retold characters' origins. They changed who characters were. Like there was a Jason Todd. Was he pre-Crisis? He was pre one of the crises. and then post whatever crisis it was, his like origin had changed. Um, but one of the biggest things was Superman. In old Superman continuity, when he was found as a baby, he picked up a tractor as a baby. He was Superboy, and all of this stuff. And then John Byrne wrote and drew Man of Steel, which retold his origin post Crisis, where he slowly developed powers. They didn't. He didn't become Superman till uh, his late teens, early 20s. There was no Superboy. Um, there was only one kind of kryptonite at the time, because before that there were like so many different kinds of kryptonite that had so many different effects, and they went back to just simple green kryptonite. Changed Wonder Woman's origin. Spoilers: Barry Allen sacrifices himself, and Supergirl dies. All sorts of stuff. Anyway, this is the novelization of that giant story. Um, they did it as one of the big crossovers in the Arrowverse on the CW with Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and it had some interesting aspects to it, but it wasn't the greatest of their crossovers. Wasn't the worst, but definitely wasn't the best. That was Crisis on Earth X. And actually, I never read the comic until just a few years ago. I knew all the story beats and everything, but I didn't read it from start to finish until just a few years ago. I think right before the CW was doing their crossover. I wanted to have that story down. But before reading the comic, I had read the novel, the novelization. Anyway, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Marv Wolfman. And that was the last book that I read in April of 2005. So that's that. As always, did not think ahead to a question. So how about this? Are there any books that you recall reading but don't recall anything about? Like you could say in conversation, oh yeah, I read that book. I don't know anything about it. Went straight through my head. Not interested enough to read it again. Not because it's necessarily bad, but I would guess it's probably not that good. It's just blah, maybe, or didn't catch your interest, whatever. Have you ever had that experience? What book is it? If you can even remember what the title is. Obviously, it's something that has happened to me. I've probably mentioned it many times in this video series, where I'll talk about one of the books on the list and go, yeah, I don't remember anything about this. And as I said, some of them, I go, oh yeah, I do remember this, and it sounds, reading the description on Amazon, it sounds interesting, like something I would reread because I probably enjoyed it. But there are a few, like Dark Planet, no memory of it. Description on Amazon does nothing for me. Not sure. I assumed it. Well, it has a cool cover ish. And probably the back cover description that was on the paperback back then, or I assume I read a paperback, probably sounded interesting. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, there's books that just I'd have to look at my list to even tell you that I read it, and then I couldn't tell you anything about it. But let me know. Not the greatest question, but let me know your book forgetting experience, I guess, in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. And that's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.